Tonight, Washington on edge right now. You can see the building behind me. A lot of people thinking about what Bob Mueller is doing, securing another guilty plea from a Trump confidant, and this time it's Russia related. We have all the facts for you. Michael Cohen pleading guilty over lying to Congress about a Trump Tower project in Moscow. This is the first public evidence ever that someone inside the Trump organization was actively doing outreach to the Kremlin in the middle of the 2016 campaign. And on top of that, he's admitting to lying about it. You're looking at the footage there of him leaving court. Mueller revealing that Cohen lied about basically three things: Trump's involvement in this Moscow project, plans for Cohen and maybe even Trump to travel to Russia for it, and, critically, outreach to the Kremlin for help on the project. Cohen pointing the finger directly at Trump in court today, saying Donald Trump, referred to in this document as Individual 1, was the person involved, and saying that Cohen lied to Congress in order to match Trump's political messaging as well as out of loyalty. So Cohen's first lie, he talked with Trump about Moscow more than he claimed, and he briefed Trump's family members, we'll get to that tonight, within the Trump organization about this very project in Russia. Cohen working on Russia projects, Donald Trump knew it, even though, of course, you may recall, the candidate and the president said over and over that he didn't.
I have nothing to do with Russia, folks, okay?
I have no dealings with Russia. I have no deals in Russia. I have no deals that could happen in Russia because we've stayed away. And I have no loans with Russia. I have nothing to do with Russia. I have no investments in Russia, none whatsoever. I don't have property in Russia. I own nothing in Russia. I have no loans in Russia. I don't have any deals in Russia.
I promise you I don't have any deals with Russia.
Cohen also says he lied about how long he was working on this project. That's important because it gives you a flavor for how serious it was, that it was going on until June 2016, months longer than he claimed to Congress, and that Trump denied that a month later. This was right as he was also asking Russia for help hacking Hillary.
I mean, I will tell you right now, zero. I have nothing to do with Russia. Yes. I built an unbelievable company. But if you look there, you'll see there's nothing in Russia. Russia, if you're listening, I hope you're able to find the 30,000 emails that are missing.
And that's not all. Cohen also admitting today that he lied when he said that he never talked about traveling to Russia for the project. He admits that he did talk about that, and he did communicate about it, and he did work on getting Donald Trump to go. Mueller also has the evidence. These are the emails about Cohen plotting to visit Russia before the RNC convention and writing that Trump could go, quote, once he becomes the nominee. Cohen also admitting he got help from the highest levels of the Kremlin, corresponding with, get this, Vladimir Putin's top aide and press secretary, and following up with his personal assistant, and then talking to her over the phone for about 20 minutes regarding the project. So Cohen was lying about all of these things. Now, the reason why, he says, was to minimize links between the Moscow project and Trump. Now, I want to be clear before I go any further, and we have some great experts in a moment. What you just saw there is more than we usually get from Bob Mueller. He's not just saying Cohen lied or giving you the bare bones details of a crime. He's also getting into Michael Cohen's motive, covering up the depth of these Trump links to the Kremlin. Now, what is Trump's response today? Before I show it to you, I want to tell you why what you're about to see is false. Because Cohen already confessed to committing crimes for Trump in August. You certainly remember all the Stormy Daniels stuff. So they are linked by that. Those are crimes that Michael Cohen says he committed for Trump, including paying off women who allege relationships with Trump. But watch how Donald Trump falsely tries to deny this today and claims that the only reason Cohen is giving up the goods to Mueller today on Russia is because Cohen committed crimes Trump claims were unrelated to him.
Michael Cohen, what he's doing is he was convicted, I guess, you'll have to put it into legal terms, but he was convicted with a fairly long-term sentence on things totally unrelated to the Trump organization.
Donald Trump's former private lawyer, Michael Cohen, accepted his own fate in a deal with prosecutors, pleading guilty to serious crimes, including paying hush money to Stormy Daniels to keep her quiet before the election. And Cohen says it was at the direction of then-candidate Trump.
So Cohen already confessed to those crimes for the campaign. Today he admits he tried to work with the Kremlin during the campaign. So let's just think about where we are. These are new questions that Bob Mueller has very deliberately, very strategically put out in public. Who else did Cohen work with? Which Russians knew about all this? And were they working together on other things, like potentially a conspiracy to hack emails inside the United States? We know Bob Mueller doesn't leak, but he does speak through his actions and through these types of court filings. And he's speaking loudly today, signing this himself. And he's moving forward after getting these answers from Trump down on paper on the record. I can tell you that includes a question about, yes, the Trump Tower Moscow deal. And all of this is happening at the same time that Trump's campaign chair was busted for lying to Mueller this week, and the feds, and feeding that information back to Trump, and the same time that a key Roger Stone tipster admitted right here on The Beat that he worked with Roger Stone to lie to Congress and lie about the source of his tip on the Podesta emails. And it comes as the Washington Post reports that Roger Stone and Trump were talking late into the night, right in the heat of the campaign when this was all going down. This isn't happening in isolation tonight. And the charges against Cohen today, they are a floor, not a ceiling. And that's not all. As Maya Wiley and David Corn and myself were getting ready to broadcast for you tonight, this story crossing the wires in our hour. BuzzFeed reporting that the Trump Organization explored a plan to hand over a $50 million penthouse in the Trump Tower Moscow building to Vladimir Putin. That also breaking right now. Let's get right to it. David Corn is the Washington Bureau Chief for Mother Jones. Maya Wiley, a former counsel to the mayor of New York and a civil prosecutor in the Southern District of New York, where we saw all of that action today with Michael Cohen, and another former federal prosecutor, Joyce Vance. Maya, what does it mean?
So when there's smoke, there's not necessarily fire. But here there are flames licking at Donald Trump's feet, and he needs to start jumping. Those flames are quite clear because this is the first time we have publicly a direct link between Donald Trump, a motive for a conspiracy to defraud the United States that's financial, potentially, certainly looks like it's there, and goes right into June 2016, and clear knowledge, direct involvement of Donald Trump in trying to organize the business transaction. Remember and backtrack, Felix Sater, who Michael Cohen had an email exchange with in the spring of 2016 saying, we can get this meeting and we can engineer our guy getting elected. So when you put all that together, there's a lot of fire.
A lot of fire. And David Corn, we've talked a lot about the dossier and what in it has overlapped with evidence. I'm interested in the evidence, not in the speculation. Here is the Mueller court documents that are brand new that says minimizing links was the goal. Minimizing links for the Moscow project and Trump. That's why Cohen was lying. That's the crime he confessed to today. And here's the Steele dossier. Viewers can take it in themselves. Quote, Cohen heavily engaged in cover-up and damage limitation operation in an attempt to prevent the full details of Trump's relationship with Russia being exposed.
There's that. And let's just take a step back for 1 second, because I think the bottom line here, the most important thing, is that when Donald Trump was running for president as the America First candidate, his company, his lawyer, were secretly interacting with Putin's own office to try to get help from Putin's own office so that he could go ahead with a deal in Russia to make money for Donald Trump. He was saying to Putin's office, help me make money in Russia, while he's running for president and not telling the public that this deal's underway. This is the most significant political conflict of interest, I think, in modern history. That's why this is all being covered up. And you have to think, if you're Putin, you know this is happening. Here, Trump is coming to you and asking for a favor while he's running for president. What do you think that's going to mean to Putin, as at the same time he's beginning and he's planning this operation to attack the U.S. election? It's Trump wants to do business with me. So if I go ahead with this plan, he probably won't mind. So that's the big thing here. There's a defrauding of the American voter underway. And in the Steele dossier, the first memo he wrote in June of 2016, he said that one way that the Russians have been trying to cultivate and co-opt Donald Trump is by dangling business opportunities before him. This meets that, that allegation to a T.
And you're saying even if there may not be crimes that implicate Donald Trump here, this is a terrible thing for America if you have a candidate trying to do this double dealing.
Put aside anything else in the Trump-Russia scandal. This should be a gigantic scandal on its own. I always thought it was one of the undercovered elements of the whole scandal, that Trump would tell the American public, I'm for you, while telling Putin, I need your help.
Right.
I mean, that to me, there should be 27 congressional hearings on this alone, and now we have the details. And Trump, as we've been seeing all day, can't get away with his denials on this.
And Joyce,
been caught.
That brings us to this story that I mentioned here, Crossing the Wires Now. You're doing really live legal analysis because I know it broke while you were seated in our chair here. But I'm going to read from BuzzFeed. NBC News has not confirmed this. Donald Trump's company planned to give a $50 million penthouse at Trump Tower Moscow if it were built to Putin as they try to negotiate that development during the 2016 campaign. BuzzFeed says they have 4 sources, including the originator of the plan, and they say 2 U.S. law enforcement officials tell BuzzFeed that Cohen discussed the idea with a Putin representative. They also note in their reporting that they cannot ascertain whether Donald Trump knew about that. Joyce, your view of that hot story as well as everything else that's been said.
Well, this is a real problem that we have going forward, and it exists across this entire spectrum of financial dealings that Trump had with the Russians. The problem is that if Trump was lying and if Michael Cohen was lying when they were talking to the American people, when they were talking to Congress, Moscow knew that they were lying. And that made them vulnerable to blackmail. We don't know what happened. We don't know if that ever came to fruition. But our country was vulnerable because the president, as David says, failed to disclose this entire host of conflicts. That's exactly why presidents give up their tax returns, why there's vetting, why we have an emoluments clause. This is exactly what the founding fathers were afraid of, a president who was compromised and compromised the country. This new story, though, is really pretty remarkable. It may be fine, to build something in Russia and give somebody a condominium. It doesn't smell very good on the surface. It's just breaking now. We need to see how far in progress this was, how much Trump knew, and find out where all the tentacles on this new reporting go, because it could be a real bombshell.
Maya?
I agree. We need to know more. It could be a bombshell, but this isn't the only thing that appears to be a quid pro quo or a tit for tat. I mean, remember that Michael Flynn pled guilty to lying about talking to Russians about sanctions during the transition. Did Michael Flynn know that Donald Trump was in the process of trying to get a Trump-Moscow deal? There are a lot of conversations that we need to know about that Robert Mueller probably does know about, because remember, he's talking to all of these folks. And we have the Southern District investigating the Trump Organization. So a lot of this may come to light through multiple sources.
Joyce, I want to ask you, given that you've held posts not unlike Andrew Weissmann and a lot of these prosecutors that have made headway under Mueller, how do you interpret the timing and the way that Mueller is moving and using these different individuals, Cohen, Corsi, who, as we reported last night, was basically given the plea deal that includes his false statement charge, and Stone, who very clearly, as we've reported, is a target?
This really looks like the prosecutorial team is engaging in a little bit of a pincers movement. They're working the Roger Stone angle, which includes Corsi and others, trying to figure out if there was a direct connection through Roger Stone between the campaign and Moscow as the emails were hacked and released from the DNC. And that's really interesting, because that would be direct evidence of a conspiracy to collude in defrauding the United States if the evidence were to go that direction. Now we see simultaneously, though, that Mueller is really going, in fact, exactly the direction that Trump has always said would be a red line, into his financial transactions. We're looking at a lot of information that I think we weren't sure until Michael Cohen pled this morning could possibly be on the table. And so it looks like Mueller has circled the wagons. His prosecutors are able to focus on multiple sorts of cases at the same time. I suspect that individual number one is having a bad night tonight.
Hey, I'm Ari Melber from MSNBC. You can see more of our videos right here, or better yet, subscribe to our YouTube channel below. You could have been anywhere in the world, but you're here with us, and we appreciate that.